Welcome to the Corporate Risk Response and Resolution podcast of SBP. My name is Eniola Alayo, and in this episode, we would be breaking down and exploring how businesses should prepare, how they should respond, and how they can recover from corporate crisis. We all hear about corporate crisis, and we don't really know how in-depth it is, right? Today, we have two distinguished speakers with me here that would be breaking down what corporate crisis is, and they'll be letting us in on everything that we need to know about corporate crisis. On my left is Omobolaji Bello. He's a senior associate at Strand & Blanc Partners, and he works in the White Collar Crimes and Investigation Practice Group. Welcome.
Thank you.
And on my right is Babatunde Oyewole. He's an associate at Strand & Blanc Partners as well, and he works in the Asset Recovery and Insolvency Practice Group. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to the first episode of the first 72 hours of a corporate crisis. What happens within the first 72 hours? Well, we are here to get right into it. So for my first question, it would be to Omobolaji Bello. Starting with the basics, right? What would you say a corporate crisis is?
Thank you for that question, Eniola. So a corporate crisis, to start off, when people hear the word corporate crisis, they think it's something scandalous, an event that is big, that makes headlines. However, a corporate crisis is not defined by its size. It's more defined by its effect. Now, for me, from my practice, I would say a corporate crisis is something that can affect a company's activities, probably like its day-to-day activities. It can affect it being a going concern, and most importantly, affect its reputation. That is what I would define as a corporate crisis. So you would have to understand that what can start off as an IT issue, where you might come to work and think it's an IT issue, turns out not to be just an IT issue. It becomes a regulatory issue. It becomes an issue involving law enforcement. It becomes an issue involving cross-border regulatory authorities. So those are the things that I would define as a corporate crisis.
I actually do agree with you, right? But I would like to know what scenarios would really exemplify what a corporate crisis.
As I said, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can't say, oh, this particular scenario is a corporate. Only these types of scenarios are corporate crisis, can be defined as a corporate crisis. What you would find, it can come up from different things. It can be an issue of bribery, receiving kickbacks. It can be an issue of a data breach. It can be issue of large-scale theft in a factory, for instance. It can be something as small, I won't say small, it can be something like a victimization complaint, a whistleblower complaint against a senior member of the company, someone who is part of senior management. So those are the kind of things those are like the sort of things that one would define as a corporate crisis, you understand? Yes. So I don't know, Tunde, would you like to?
I actually do agree with you. And like you had rightly mentioned, the list is quite endless, right? We could even have issues such as supply chain disruptions. We could even have shareholder disputes or even governance failures, right? We could even have issues revolving around corruption and bribery allegations against members of the company or even the senior management. So the list is actually quite endless.
So you mentioned something about isolation. Can you really expand on that, about the crisis? It doesn't happen in isolation.
Yes. So what I mean by it doesn't happen in isolation is that, okay, for instance, you might get to work one Monday and then they tell you that, oh, this if you're the HR executive and you're informed that, oh, this has happened, you might consider it as just an HR issue. But before the end of the day, that HR issue becomes a regulatory issue. It becomes an issue for law enforcement. It basically goes out of what you just considered as a small case, a small incident. So that's what I'm saying. A corporate crisis is something that doesn't occur in isolation. It usually affects major departments in the company. To give an example, in a case I handled once, an employee who attended his resignation, I was about to leave the company. About 2 or 3 days before leaving, he stole approximately 18 or 19,000 files, proprietary information belonging to the company he was working for at the time. And when you come on board, then you know that this is a major corporate crisis, because the things he took were design concepts, very important business information.
And data protection issues.
Exactly. So you understand, you get the point. It started out as something that was just, oh, an employee did this. But by the time you look into it, you now realize that, well, it's stored data, and this some of the data is stored belongs to third parties. That means it has an effect outside the organization, and then you have to find a way to respond to this. Yes.
Thank you. Is there anything you would like to?
Yes, actually. And you see, the points he made is the reason exactly why the first 72 hours are actually quite important. And that is why companies and organizations are advised not to treat issues in isolation. For example, the IT team would think it's just an IT issue. The compliance team would think it's a compliance issue. Even the legal team would think it's just a legal issue, right? The business itself as well would think it's something operations will fix. But that is not the solution to events that actually can lead to corporate crisis. From legal, from compliance, from senior management, all of these members have to be in the same room at the same time and immediately to provide solutions to the event that has actually occurred in order for it not to escalate beyond what they can actually control.
I appreciate the point he has made. In a sense, what I understand by it is that a corporate crisis requires a coordinated response. I give you an example of another case I handled once. We were engaged to sort of carry out an investigation into a whistleblower complaint. A complaint by a whistleblower. Yes, the complaint alleged that certain members of the company were receiving kickbacks from suppliers. They also made complaints regarding theft of company property. It also made allegations that of victimization of junior staff. Now, this complaint was sent to the multinational headquartered outside Nigeria. And when we reviewed this, we realized that it goes beyond just, a whistleblower made a complaint. These are several issues that connect different departments in the company, and it requires a coordinated response on how to deal with it and prevent it from becoming a reputational issue. So I get it in the sense that when there's a corporate crisis, one of the very first things you need to do within the first 72 hours is have a coordinated response to that issue so that it does not escalate.
Okay, Mr. Babatunde, from what has been said, right, I would like to just ask you another question. Let's try to picture a financial institution, a big one, going through a glitch, and their customers are seeing inaccurate balances, right? And there are issues concerning fraud and things like that. What should their first 72 hours, what should it be like? Like their response, preparation, you get everything we're talking about. What should they do in that first 72 hours?
All right. Thank you very much for that question, Eniola.
You're welcome.
I think the first thing the bank actually has to do is containment, right?
Okay.
If the bank suspects that a glitch has actually occasioned unauthorized transfers or, created an avenue for perpetration of fraud, the first thing to do is to contain the losses so that it doesn't escalate beyond what the situation already is, right? And how do you do that? That's the first thing that comes to mind. The first you can do is to freeze the compromised accounts, right? And the second would be to place a PND restrictions on suspicious accounts. And the bank can even interact with other banks through the NIBSS platforms. That's to intimate other banks so that they can preserve the funds and ensure that they are not dissipated by these perpetrators, right? So the second thing to do after containment is to initiate the risk management team. But of course, that presupposes that you already have an existing risk management, which is one thing we often advise organizations to set in place before, they venture fully into whatever business that they're actually engaging. So members from the legal, compliance, which I did mention earlier, the senior management, they all actually have to be in the same room and initiate the customer response measures that they have in place within the organization to ensure that customers do not panic and to ensure that those who still have the funds in the company,
yes, they won't start pulling out.
Exactly. So those are the situations. Those are the first two things that I believe the company organization can actually do.
If I may take it from there, looking at the scenario you just painted, there's something you must also take into consideration, whether it's a glitch or it's fraud, activities of third parties or insider action. The company has to consider things such as data breach, whether the data of customers has been breached. Again, they would have to reach out to other data controllers that they are relating with, that they are probably partnering with to try and have a map and assess what has happened. Again, you would understand that with the Nigerian Data Protection Act, there are reporting requirements for such kind of situations, and then these are things that they will have to do as part of their containment measures. Now, once they've successfully activated their containment measures, the crisis management team is active. The very next thing they should do, being the financial institutions, consider who are the regulators and to inform about what has occurred. At this point, you definitely need the advice of your legal team, your external and internal legal team, to know exactly how you couch your notifying this regulators and the time frame within which to notify the regulators. Next step is obviously, if you determine that it's fraud, for instance, or even if it's not fraud, with the issues of customers' balances showing inaccurate figures, were these funds, for instance, actually taken, or it's just an APP issue that is showing wrong balances? But if it's these amounts have been taken out of the system, you would have to involve law enforcement agencies, the police, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Again, we're still speaking within the first 72 hours. You also have to protect your customers by understanding what level of losses have they incurred. So you can at that point in time have a way of discussing with these customers to allay any fears. And then the final thing for me would be to undertake a full-blown investigation of what has occurred, because you have to start that process to determine what happened, why it happened, and how would you prevent it going forward. You'd have to identify very very important things, and it's important to get this done as fast as possible, because if you have insider actors that are inside the organization, 72 hours is more than enough for them to erase the track of what they've done. If you have outside actors, 72 hours is more than enough for them to dissipate the funds, especially in this day and age with crypto, with crypto facilities and all of that. So you have to take these steps after containment to ensure that you can recover and manage the situation. Ordinarily, companies that are able to do this within that 72 hours time frame would do a lot better than a company that has not achieved this. The point is more of speed rather than how much you've gathered. Just what can you really get done within that first 72 hours.
Yes. Okay. And definitely, I feel like if companies actually do that, before you get your name on the newspaper and everybody starts to make that noise that we all see, they've done all this. I feel like that containment that you mentioned, and with everything that has been said, you can actually put that together.
Yes, definitely. If you can get this done within the first 72 hours, you'll be able to prevent a lot of things that would occur if you fail to do anything within the first 72 hours and you're still pretty much trying to determine what you should do. And taking a cue from what he said, it's not about what you should do. Do you actually have, for instance, an incident response plan prior to the incident? So you don't start preparing for war when you get to the battlefield. It's before that. So you should have
those policies should even be in place.
Exactly.
Right. So that brings me back to my next question, right? So you've mentioned response, right? The quick response. So can we say that how fast you respond is like as important as the crisis management?
Yes. So for me, I would say that you have to understand something about corporate crisis when it occurs. The company is not judged by the crisis itself. Crisis is inevitable in business. It's, you can't control which employee comes into your organization and is being honest. You can't control which employee will or will not take kickbacks from your suppliers. You can't control, for instance, the activities of illegal actors outside the company, hackers and the likes, especially in this day and time. But what you can control is what you do when these things do occur. So you'd have to have, like I said, an incident response plan in place. You have to have policies that tell employees what and what not to do. You have to have several things such as whistleblower policy, victimization, anti-victimization policy, anti-money laundering policies, so that you can pinpoint when these things happen, where the internal controls failed and how you can improve on them. Yes. So for me, it's a question of what do you do when the crisis occurs rather than what the crisis is itself.
Thank you for that answer.
And yes, if I may come in, actually, one of the reasons we've seen in practice why organizations fail because of a crisis is not merely because it occurred, right? Some of the reasons could be that they responded very slowly, they communicated very poorly, and they allowed the issue to escalate even beyond what it should ordinarily be.
And that's actually the issue, because businesses always wait to have all the information. I feel like that's the trap they generally fall into, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you see, when you are trying to mitigate a crisis, the first point is not perfection, right? It is stabilization, which leads us back to the points we made earlier. So containment of a crisis before it escalates beyond what it should ordinarily be. And that is why we often advise businesses to have internal control measures that would actually be tailored and general towards some of the problems that are inherent to a particular business. For example, the scenario you painted as to exactly. So there should be measures in place that would address individual crises.
Like the incident response plan.
Exactly, that could attend to some of these issues when they occur, so that when the company is reacting to those problems, it will be instantaneous rather than waiting for days before you can actually take proper steps to mitigate whatever it is that has happened. And oftentimes when companies do that, you realize that it's already too late. The public has already got to known about it. The regulators are knocking on your door.
Online.
And oftentimes that's like one of the major problems that leads to the downfall of organizations and businesses, right?
Thank you.
Basically, for me, my understanding of it is that you should have a script for things like this. It might not be specifically tailored, it may be a general script that tells you what are the things you should do, the advisors you should reach out to when things like this occur. I mean, looking at it, would a fraudster, for instance, wait for you to finish your investigation report? I mean, money is lost. You have to chase these funds. The regulators will not pause the timeline because your business is trying. You cannot, for instance, tell the NDPR that, we're trying to gather information, so because of that, we won't be able to do it. No, they won't pause the timelines for you. So you have to act fast, act to preserve evidence, act to protect the business, protect the customers of the business, which is why we say the first 72 hours realistically can determine what your next 72 months would look like. If you do it badly, it could be 72 months of litigation, reputational recovery, financial exposure. So these are some of the things that we consistently advise clients that when responding to crisis, you should respond properly and effectively to prevent it from escalating beyond what it should be.
Thank you. So for businesses watching us, for our audience, what is one takeaway that they should take from this video? From you would each give one takeaway each for our audience.
Key takeaway for me is speed is an asset, delay is a liability. If you take too long to respond to the crisis, or you want to have a proper response to the crisis, you find out that the crisis would have consumed the business. There's a company, I won't mention the name of the company, but I was fortunate to be in a meeting where the company's issues were being discussed, and I realized that all it took was social media. One person that's one bad review on social media, and this is a company that brought down a company worth billions of naira, really. And when I reviewed the facts, I realized that while all of that was ongoing on social media, they had no way to respond. They didn't know what to do. There was no official disclaimer, nothing of such. And at the end of the day, the business, it just drowned the business. So for me, that's the key takeaway. Delay is a liability.
It is indeed. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much. And you see, one of the things some businesses actually misconstrue is the fact that, crisis response is not just operational, right? It is actually a strategic, legal, and compliance action that a company has to take in order to save itself from demise. Like you did mention, some instances have actually occurred where a company has actually gone down the drain. And then when you are reviewing the business, you go through the books, you look at the events that have unfolded before the actual demise of the company, and you realize it's a simple issue that could actually have been, mitigated or solved from the very beginning, right? So most businesses don't take this as something very important to do. But the key takeaway from this podcast is the fact that, crisis management is actually very strategic for any company that intends to operate in the long run.
Thank you both for that insightful session. Honestly, I've learned a lot from this. What I would say personally that I've learned is that you just have to take things bit by bit as a business. You can't do everything at the same time. And also, you have to have this preparation in advance. You have to have your policies in place and your risk management policies really in place before anything even happens. Thank you so much, Omobolaji and Babatunde Oyewole. I really do appreciate you being on this session. And to the businesses watching us, our audience, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure that you've learned a lot. Well, you can join this conversation. Put your comments down below. Ask your questions. We are going to answer you, right? And also like, share, and comment. Till we meet again. Bye.